March 8, 2014. Flight mh370 vanished into the sky, 239 lives aboard. No signal, no trace, no explanation. What really happened over the Indian Ocean? This is the untold story of the plane that disappeared without a trace. The sky was clear, the horizon endless, and the flight of mh370 began like any other. On March 8, 2014, 239 people boarded a Boeing 777 for what was meant to be a routine journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. Families, business travelers, and crew members settled into their seats, unaware that in less than an hour, the flight would enter the pages of aviation history in a way no one could have imagined. As the plane took off, the engines roared with familiar confidence, lifting the massive aircraft smoothly into the morning sky. The passengers' conversations, the rustle of newspapers, the subtle hum of air conditioning, these were the ordinary sounds of air travel. Outside, the sun reflected off the wings, the clouds drifting lazily below. Everything appeared normal. Inside the cockpit, the pilots ran through their standard checks. Everything seemed routine, yet the first subtle anomalies were already appearing on the radar screens far below. Communication with air traffic control remained normal, but somewhere along the flight path, something would soon shift.
The journalist in La Réunion just sent us a picture just to investigate if it could suit with an aircraft, with a piece of an aircraft. So with my team, we just looked at hundreds and thousands of pictures. We just tried to figure out which plane it could belong to.
Minutes passed. mh370 climbed steadily, cruising over the South China Sea. Passengers relaxed, some dozing, others scrolling through devices, unaware of the invisible changes taking place miles above the ocean. The calm was deceptive. Somewhere between routine procedures and the unknown, a signal was lost. It began with a silence, a brief, almost imperceptible pause in communication. A TC noticed it first. Attempts to reach the flight via standard radio channels went unanswered. The aircraft's transponder, the device that broadcasts its position to controllers, had gone silent. For those on the ground, monitoring the flight, an uncomfortable tension began to build. Something was not right. In the Boeing 777, a modern, technologically advanced aircraft, seemed to vanish from the screens. On board, passengers remained unaware. Flight attendants moved along the aisles, checking on comfort, adjusting seatbelts, offering water. Their routines masked the growing anomaly in the aircraft's systems. From a human perspective, all appeared normal, but the data told a different story. The clock ticked on. Back on the ground, Malaysia's air traffic control began to raise alarms. The plane had stopped broadcasting its location, and no one could contact it.
This hour, a desperate search is underway for MH Flight 370, which departed Kuala Lumpur at 12:41 a.m. local time and was due to land in Beijing at 6:30 a.m. Air traffic control lost contact with the plane about 2 hours after takeoff.
A flight that continued to fly without any communication. Over thousands of kilometers of ocean, the aircraft had become a ghost in the sky. Families on the ground watched with growing unease. Phones were answered, messages sent, but responses were not coming. Social media began to carry fragments of information, rumors, and uncertainty. The world was beginning to sense the mystery. Investigators later pieced together the timeline through satellite pings. These handshakes with orbiting satellites provided intermittent signals, enough to trace a vast arc across the Indian Ocean. Yet the details of what transpired on board remained unknown. Was it a mechanical failure, human error, or something more deliberate? The absence of concrete evidence fueled speculation, intensifying the global fascination with this disappearance. Meanwhile, inside the aircraft, systems were operating, but certain critical components appeared inactive. The transponder remained off. Communications were dead. Yet the engines continued their relentless hum. The plane was moving, alive in motion, but invisible to the eyes trained to see it. Each moment of flight amplified the mystery. Pilots maintained composure, the Boeing 777 was performing as designed, but the human element, the unknown factor, had introduced uncertainty into a highly controlled environment. As the hours passed, satellite data provided the first clues. mh370 had continued on a southern trajectory, over open ocean, beyond any immediate search and rescue range. The sheer remoteness of its flight path would soon challenge every assumption investigators held about aircraft disappearance and emergency response. Authorities coordinated across nations. Malaysia, China, and international aviation agencies began to mobilize search efforts. Maps of the Indian Ocean were scrutinized, currents and wind patterns analyzed, satellite arcs traced repeatedly. The scale of the challenge was unprecedented. An aircraft fully functional yet fully missing. Meanwhile, families and loved ones remained unaware of the unfolding mystery. Routine check-ins failed, messages went unanswered, and the minutes stretched into hours with mounting anxiety. The contrast between the mundane in-flight activity and the extraordinary circumstances of disappearance began to dominate headlines worldwide. Search operations on the surface of the ocean began almost immediately. Aircraft from neighboring countries combed vast stretches of water. Satellites scanned tirelessly, yet no wreckage or debris was found in the expected flight corridor. As days turned into weeks, the satellite data remained the primary evidence of the aircraft's path. Each ping represented both hope and frustration, an incomplete puzzle offering tantalizing hints without concrete answers. Analysts attempted to model the plane's movements, theorize potential crashes, and calculate drift patterns of possible debris. Public speculation intensified. Media outlets covered every lead, sometimes prematurely, adding layers of misinformation to an already complex situation. Experts emphasized caution. Without physical evidence, conclusions remained speculative. Yet, the world's fascination with the invisible plane grew, combining human empathy, fear, and curiosity. mh370 had become a symbol of the unknown, a modern flight turned ghost. Every radar shadow, every satellite ping, and every unresponsive communication contributed to a narrative of mystery unparalleled in aviation history. Days passed, and the search intensified. Aircraft and ships scoured the South China Sea, then extended to the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean. Satellite images were analyzed meticulously, yet nothing concrete emerged. For the first time in aviation history, the disappearance of a modern, fully functional airliner had no visible trace. The world watched, perplexed and anxious. Authorities pieced together every possible lead. Radar data, satellite pings, and military tracking systems were cross-referenced. The intermittent handshakes between mh370 and an orbiting satellite hinted at a southern flight path. Analysts dubbed it the Inmarsat Arc, a line across the Indian Ocean, representing the plane's last known communications. It was a story without faces, without explanation. Families of passengers clung to hope. Governments issued statements promising relentless effort to locate the aircraft. Meanwhile, experts dissected the data, searching for any anomaly that could explain the plane's disappearance. Could it have been a sudden mechanical failure, a catastrophic loss of systems, or a deliberate act by someone on board?
Based on new satellite communication, we can say with a high degree of certainty that the aircraft communications addressing and reporting system, or ACAS, was disabled just before the aircraft reached the east coast of Peninsula Malaysia. It then flew in a westerly direction back over Peninsula Malaysia before turning northwest. Up until the point at which it left military primary radar coverage, these movements are consistent.
Yet for weeks, the search yielded nothing. No life rafts, no floating luggage. Not even a fragment of metal visible from the air or satellite imagery. The ocean, vast and indifferent, had swallowed the evidence. Meanwhile, investigators reconstructed the flight profile from the sparse data available. The last signals indicated a gradual deviation from the planned route. Why? Was it an intentional diversion or a consequence of a system malfunction? The absence of concrete information made it impossible to distinguish between human intervention and technical failure. Speculation ran rampant in the media. Some theorized a hijacking scenario. Others suggested catastrophic mechanical failure or fire. In private, officials emphasized that without debris or black box recordings, any conclusion was provisional. The lack of physical evidence made mh370 a puzzle unlike any before in modern aviation. Technical experts scrutinized every angle. The aircraft's electrical systems, fuel management, and flight control software were analyzed for any indication of failure. Simulations were run to recreate the last known flight path. Yet the mystery deepened. Each explanation raised new questions. A plane capable of flying thousands of kilometers had effectively disappeared from all conventional tracking. In the cockpit, if the pilots were aware of the unfolding situation, there is no record of their perspective. The flight deck remained silent after the last routine communication. Outside, the world projected countless theories onto the empty sky where mh370 should have been visible. The global aviation community reacted. Safety boards, manufacturers, and airlines scrutinized flight procedures, communication protocols, and emergency response mechanisms. Could this disappearance have been prevented with more advanced tracking? Investigators faced technical limitations. The ocean floor in the projected area is among the deepest on Earth. Even advanced sonar mapping struggled to detect the plane, or let alone recover it. The vastness of the search zone meant that weeks of effort could yield no results, amplifying the sense of helplessness. Meanwhile, satellite data analysts examined the ping logs repeatedly. Each interaction with the Inmarsat satellite indicated that mh370 had maintained powered flight for hours after losing contact with ground stations. The plane had flown across regions where radar coverage was minimal or non-existent, yet the engines had continued to function. As to carrying it further into the remote Indian Ocean, experts debated possible scenarios. Could a sudden depressurization or fire have incapacitated everyone on board? Was it possible for the plane to continue flying on autopilot without intervention, or was human action involved? An intentional diversion, a deliberate change in heading. Each scenario had supporting arguments, yet all remained speculative. As months passed, small pieces of evidence began to surface. Floating debris washed up on distant shores. Wing fragments, a flaperon, and other small items were confirmed to be from mh370. Each discovery offered new hope and new clues, but also raised more questions about the aircraft's final hours. The analysis of these fragments provided limited insight. The flaperon, discovered on Reunion Island, offered clues about the impact dynamics, but it could not answer the fundamental questions: why the plane deviated from its route, and what happened in the cockpit during those final hours. The aircraft had become a ghost, leaving behind only whispers of its journey. Every new theory, mechanical failure, hijacking, pilot action, fire, or depressurization, was tested against the available data. Yet, none could conclusively explain the full trajectory. Experts emphasized the importance of evidence-based analysis, warning against speculation without supporting facts. Authorities continued to refine search parameters. Ocean drift models, satellite arcs, and potential debris zones were recalculated repeatedly. Every new insight was incorporated into ongoing search efforts. The scale of coordination across nations and agencies was unprecedented. The human factor, too, remained a focus. Investigators considered pilot behavior, crew training, and response to potential emergencies. Every procedure, every action in the cockpit was scrutinized to understand how a modern aircraft could vanish. Yet the silence from the plane itself left many questions unanswered. As years passed, the enigma of mh370 remained. Every new piece of debris, every fragment analyzed in labs, added a small piece to the vast puzzle. yet no complete picture emerged. Experts meticulously documented each discovery, yet the ultimate fate of the aircraft remained unknown. The plane had left no survivors, no final cockpit recordings, no definitive crash site in sight. The Indian Ocean held its secret tightly. Investigators revisited every known fact. Satellite data, once the only clue, became the foundation for complex simulations. Analysts retraced the flight path, mapping the plane's trajectory over thousands of kilometers of empty ocean. Each ping suggested continued controlled flight long after contact with ground stations had been lost. The mystery was both baffling and haunting. Questions persisted. What prompted the deviation from the flight plan? Could a sudden catastrophic event have incapacitated the crew? Or was human intervention involved? Every scenario was analyzed, every possibility weighed against available evidence. Yet, without the aircraft itself, final conclusions remained elusive. The Boeing 777, renowned for its reliability, had flown farther than any conventional tracking system had recorded. Autopilot systems maintained course, fuel management kept engines running, and the aircraft's advanced engineering continued to function. The technology worked, yet the human element, the unknown, cast a shadow over the journey. Globally, aviation authorities took note. The disappearance of mh370 prompted a re-evaluation of tracking protocols. Airlines implemented new measures to ensure continuous real-time monitoring, especially over remote regions. Satellite-based tracking, previously supplementary, became an essential component of flight safety. The lessons, born from tragedy, reshaped the way aircraft are watched across the skies. Families, however, remained in a liminal space between hope and grief. The fragments of the aircraft offered closure to some, yet for many, the mystery remained a wound. Memorials were established, stories were shared, and each remembrance kept the human aspect of the tragedy alive. mh370 was no longer just an aircraft. It had become a symbol of both technological marvel and the fragility of life. Analysis of recovered debris offered technical insights. The flaperon and wing fragments indicated impact with water, yet the exact dynamics of the descent remained unclear. Engineers examined fracture patterns, corrosion, and material stress. Each detail contributed to understanding what happened after the plane vanished from radar, but none could fully reconstruct the final moments. Investigators explored all angles. Mechanical failure, system malfunction, fire, sudden decompression. Each scenario was meticulously reviewed. Simulations were run repeatedly to model every possibility. Human intervention, accidental or deliberate, remained a factor considered seriously. Yet again, evidence was insufficient to confirm any hypothesis. The unknown persisted. The world watched and waited. Documentaries, books, and analyses examined every aspect of mh370, from engineering details to geopolitical implications. Experts discussed the incident in conferences, in training programs, and in aviation journals. The event reshaped thinking on emergency response, aircraft redundancy, and flight deck monitoring. One undeniable lesson emerged: the vulnerability of modern aviation. No matter how advanced the technology, unforeseen events, mechanical, human, or otherwise, can create situations beyond immediate comprehension. mh370 highlighted the critical importance of continuous tracking, real-time communication, and proactive safety protocols. Despite exhaustive search efforts, the main wreckage was never located. The scale of the Indian Ocean, combined with depth and currents, posed insurmountable challenges. Sonar scans and submersible operations pushed the limits of modern technology. The aircraft, however, remained elusive, reinforcing the sense of mystery and finality that would define its legacy. For the aviation community, mh370 became a case study unlike any other. Training programs incorporated lessons learned from the disappearance, emphasizing scenario planning, system redundancy, and the human factor in crisis management. And airlines globally reviewed protocols for communication failure, autopilot reliance, and long-range tracking. Safety standards were elevated in direct response to the incident. Public fascination endured. Each anniversary, each minor discovery, renewed interest in the flight. Social media, news outlets, and documentaries kept the story alive. mh370 had transcended its identity as a flight. It became a symbol of unanswered questions, of human vulnerability, and of the vast, indifferent nature of the ocean. Memorials and commemorations provided solace to families. Communities came together to honor those lost, sharing photographs, letters, and stories. The human impact remained at the forefront, reminding the world that behind every aircraft statistic are lives, relationships, and futures interrupted. The search for answers reshaped technology, policy, and perception. New systems were developed for real-time monitoring over oceans. Emergency communication protocols were enhanced, and satellite tracking became standard. While the disappearance itself could not be reversed, future tragedies could be mitigated through lessons drawn from mh370. Every simulation, every analysis, every examination of debris contributed to understanding, even if full closure remained out of reach. Engineers, pilots, and investigators worked tirelessly, combining expertise in flight dynamics, oceanography, and satellite technology. The pursuit of knowledge became a testament to human persistence in the face of uncertainty. Ultimately, mh370's disappearance stands as a solemn reminder. Even in an age of advanced aviation technology, the unknown can still emerge. A modern aircraft with hundreds aboard vanished in a way that defied conventional understanding. It challenged assumptions, questioned preparedness, and highlighted the need for continuous vigilance. The legacy of mh370 is multifaceted. It is a story of mystery, of technical challenge, of human endurance, and of global collaboration. It prompted reforms in aviation safety, increased awareness of remote tracking challenges, and underscored the importance of procedural discipline in the cockpit. Each of these changes honors the memory of those lost. And yet, the mystery endures. mh370 flies silently through collective imagination, a ghost over the Indian Ocean. It remains a symbol of the delicate balance between human achievement and the unpredictable forces of nature. No wreckage has revealed all the answers, but the journey of understanding continues, carried forward by those determined to learn from tragedy. In the end, the story of mh370 is both a cautionary tale and a tribute. It reminds the world that even in modern aviation, uncertainty persists, that lives are fragile, and that our efforts to explore, to connect, and to soar carry both wonder and risk. And though the plane may never be found in its entirety, the memory of its passengers, crew, and their families continues to shape the way humanity moves through the skies. mh370's disappearance remains the most profound aviation mystery of our era. It has left lessons etched into every airline protocol, every air traffic control procedure, and every new technology designed to track flights over remote regions. From the tragedy emerges knowledge, safety, and enduring vigilance, a testament to the lives lost and the world that continues to learn from them. Even as the years pass, the story is far from forgotten. mh370 has entered the collective memory, a haunting narrative of disappearance, hope, and relentless search for answers. It challenges our understanding of aviation, the ocean, and human capability. And though the plane remains lost, its legacy continues to fly, invisible but unforgettable, across the endless sky.